Now it's time for us to delve into conversation for today, and of course we'll be talking about police extortion and how it has eaten deep into the fabric of our society. It is evident that there is endemic corruption in various forms in Nigeria, but it has done a lot more harm than good, hampering national development for many years. So corruption remains a priority concern to the Nigerian government and people. It has remitted all aspects of our public life, undermining social, economic and political development. Today on Daybreak, we'll be beaming our searchlight and it's turning to the police force and the growing cases of extortion within its rank and file. We have in the studio Mr. Eze Onyekprere from the Center for Social Justice to do justice to this topic this morning. It's good to have you join us on Daybreak.
Good morning.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
My pleasure.
Now, police extortion. A lot of people might say that this is multifaceted. A lot of people might have a lot to say about this, maybe personal experience. How did we even get here in the first place?
Well, I think police extortion did not start today. It's been part of our national life, but it has, it has increased in recent times because more or less the rule of law in Nigeria is going down, and people don't believe so much in law and order. Everybody is simply working for himself. And if you look at the duties and responsibilities of the police in terms of general maintenance of law and order, they are charged with virtually all the laws you have in Nigeria, okay, whether the penal laws, trying to make sure that society works in an orderly manner. So the canvas they have for dealing with citizens on a day-to-day basis is much more than any other of the forces. I mean, the army has no business with civilians ordinarily, if not for the aggravated insecurity. The Navy, all of them, DSS, but police is that particular force you deal with on a day-to-day basis, all right? And in fact, it should be the first point of call, even if there's an emergency, all right, for them to be there and organize things. So because of that level of interaction, they have a very big opportunity, to interface with citizens, and then maybe because we have come to this level of corruption in the country, to demand gratification for either performing their duty or for threatening somebody so that you can get away from the consequences of violating the law, or simply framing somebody up to extort money from the person. So we got here because the society is depreciating in terms of corruption. And then, like I've always said in my recent interviews, why are people stealing and getting away with it? Or why is the police extorting and getting away with it? Or the terrorist, the kidnapper? Is that we have misplaced the idea of the law. The elementary definition of the law, which I was taught in my first year in the university, is that law is the command of the sovereign, backed by sanctions. It's not moral adjuration. It is not a plea. The command of the sovereign. Who is the sovereign? The legislator, the legislature, the elected representatives of the people, the president, who signs after to assent to it. It becomes law. And then the law doesn't say, Eze, please do this. Law is not carried that way. The law says, Eze, this is what you shall do. The word is shall. You must do. In the event you refuse to do that, here is your punishment. So once you decouple right conduct or proper conduct from the sanctions that you follow, then the law becomes a mere moral adjuration. So the fact that many of these policemen and women who have tried to extort money from people who have behaved badly have not been properly punished, and punished where everybody will see it, that this is a consequence of what you've done. That's what is encouraging others. Although lately I must commend the police high command that once these issues get out of hand, particularly with the help of social media, the video, the discussions, they actually go in and fish out the culprits and try to deal with them. This has not been the case all along. But even at the higher level, sometimes they get away with almost murder.
Yeah, but there is a sense, though, that you know, this particular phenomenon that we're discussing is inherently a human trait. Whether it's corruption, whether it's criminal-minded activities, the police, not just here in Nigeria, but several police, you know, establishments across the world are dealing with certain situations, whether around impunity, around corruption, around bribery, and some of these traits. Give me a sense of how this reflects on the site, and I know you touched on that, but there's also some sort of, you get a sense that there is a normalization of it. That, you know, when you meet a police officer at a checkpoint or when they stop you, that the easiest way to get out of that time wasting or they're probing your activity is to pay the 50 naira, pay the 100 naira or whatever. The Nigerians have also engendered this practice, and that's why there's a normalization of it.
Well, from our society today, you could see that corruption has become some form of norm. It's become accepted. Just like we are almost at the point where it's expected that every elected public officer, or even the ones that are on the career path, if they have the opportunity to manage resources, the general idea in Nigeria today is that anybody who has that opportunity, 90-something% of them will try to help themselves from the resources. Yeah, beyond their normal salary. They would like to take something. If you're awarding a contract, you expect a kickback. You recall it did not start today. The first coup in Nigeria, the Zogu coup, was complaining about the 10%ers. Their coup speech talked about people who collect 10%. Now today, we have metamorphosed from 10%. We are now discussing a situation where I told a set of friends the other day that if all the politicians in Nigeria, from Mr. President down to the local government councillor, can honestly and earnestly agree to sign a compact with we Nigerians to say they will only take 10% and invest 90% of the resources we placed at their disposal, well, I will tell Nigerians to please allow them to take the 10 and work with 90 for us. Because today, the reverse is the case. If you see 10% or 20 in terms of investments, we clap and thank God. So what I'm saying is that it's become a societal norm. The big man, elected official, will steal. The permanent secretary will steal. The smaller officials who carry files will either, if you don't pay a bribe, your file could get missing, or some documents inside it, or you pay a bribe, it could jump the queue, move faster, and get to where it will be signed. So everybody is busy spoiling the waters in his own little domain. You get to the courts, of course, of late, you've seen Nigerians are now telling judges to their face that what they're doing is wrong, that they're corrupt. Even among themselves, it's been shown that what they're doing doesn't make sense. So you are a judge, you abuse your powers. Policeman abuses his powers. You get to the hospital, maybe the doctor, because he's angry, he's poorly paid, instead of working 8 hours, he puts in 4 or 5 hours in his private clinic, comes here to put in 3 hours. So it's become a societal malay that we need to, in terms of begin to nip this in the board from the highest level of leadership. Ethical leadership. If you lead in an ethical manner, there is a likelihood that those below you will follow. Let me give an example. Like in my office, I say, okay, everybody reports by 8. If not that I'm here, most times before 8 o'clock, I'm there. So you don't come to the office to say, Oga says everybody comes by 8 and he reports by 9. Now, if I say everybody leave by 5, 6, most of the times I'm also the last to go. I'm first to come, last to go. So since you know that, and I've given instruction that this is a sanction for you to report late, definitely everybody shapes up. But if I tell you to come by 8 and then I loudly drive in by 9:30, you could just target a few minutes to my coming. This troublesome man, you just come in. And or as soon as I leave the office, you also go on your own.
Is there a correlation between the conversation we're having right now and the aggravated insecurity that we're having to deal with? Because some people have tried to connect the dots and say it is this, you know, burying your head in the sand by police operatives or security men that has got us to this point where, you know, we're having to, you know, scamper around trying to restore order.
I will tell you that corruption is a good part of it. Corruption is not just only when I dip my hands into, there are various levels and ramifications of corruption. Let's take the Jos Plateau State example. The Christmas killings and the killings that have happened since the last 1 month in Jos. It was reported and undenied that the attackers that came to Menchú wrote letters indicating they were coming. It was also undenied that the people in the community approached the security operatives. They have this joint police, army, DSS. They told them. It's also on record that the killings did not just happen over 2-3 hours. The killings happened over between 24 and 48 hours. It's also on record that there were not less than 50 distress calls to the numbers that we advertised, where they say, if you're in trouble, call this number, from different individuals. It's also on record that none of those calls were responded to. And when you put all this together, and even a few days after the killing, another set of killings happened, what do you think is likely the basis? What is corruption? If you are supposed to be...
You don't think it's just operational gaps?
No, there's no operational gaps. You are discussing 200 lives lost, so many injured, people now living in ID camps, their lives will never be the same again. Now, what I'm saying in essence is that you may say it's incompetence, or you may say, for me, it's more of corruption. Because when those people were shouting, we were being killed, and you refused to come, what exactly? There could be so many motives read into why that person who was supposed to come and assist did not come. Probably he's fallen on one side, he's been bribed, or probably he doesn't care. So these are ramifications. It's part of what is leading us today. Listen, we're all in Nigeria, where we're told to go and link up our NIN to our SIM cards. All right? And we all did today. I don't think anybody is operating any phone, including this thing that you have, that is not linked. With your name, your SIM card, your name, your address, even the local government where you were born, your next of kin, everything is known. So how can you tell me that people are using these numbers and calling? Even if you don't catch them in operation, can't you follow through with those numbers? I once lost a phone in my office, and the gentleman who stole the phone removed the SIM card. If the police want to walk, they will walk. I went to the police. You know where they retrieved my phone? In Port Harcourt. The guy had already taken the SIM and thrown it away. And my phone was retrieved from Port Harcourt and brought back to me in Abuja. Okay. I am discussing a personal experience. So to tell me that somebody is in Kubwa or just across the road here calling, and we have voted money in the budget severally for tracking machines that will tell you where these people are or where the location from which the call is originating. Okay? Beyond even the SIM name link. So if it's not corruption, what is it? Okay, now taking a look at this holistically now, a lot of people will argue that maybe the welfare for these people in fighting corruption, the welfare, remuneration and all that could be a major factor driving our security agents or particularly the police into extortion. And then you just told us about your personal experience. We all know that a lot of Nigerians have very ugly experience trying to track their phone, because at the end of the day, you notice that you've been extorted, you've been asked to bring so and so money and all that. Do you think that that is the major factor that is fueling this police extortion in Nigeria? Nobody in Nigeria, except maybe the highly elected officers, Mr. President, Vice, National Assembly, State House Assembly, legislators, nobody else in Nigeria receives his true worth in terms of remuneration. Nobody else. Maybe except the big professionals, the big lawyers, doctors, and consultants who can say pay so much. Maybe you're handling an election petition, you charge 100 million, they pay you. But beyond that, once you are on a salary, very few Nigerians are receiving what is truly their true worth. So how can we give that as an excuse? Doctors and nurses are leaving because of what? They are not properly paid. Professors are always on strike because of what? They are not properly paid. Even in the judiciary, they claim they are poorly paid. Even though they are all bringing in their children, their wives, their spouses, their mistresses to come and join the place where they said they are not poorly paid. So I don't want to accept that as an excuse. If you enter a job in Daily Trust and you believe they are not paying you well, look for another job.
I believe there was one particular case. I think the recent one was in Ekiti of the police officers, two police officers that were dismissed
yes.
for collecting or extorting bribe from the tourists.
Yes.
And they later came on social media and said, listen, for 3 months we have not been paid. So how do you expect us to survive? We have families to take care of. I know that that's not enough justification for that, but do you think there's anything systemic as to why we keep dealing with this situation over and over again?
Now, why on earth will you give a man or a woman guns, put bullets in it, month 1 you don't pay him, month 2 you don't pay him, and we are discussing month 3 plus?
Well, isn't that the issue?
That's what I'm saying. A part of it, for any situation that we have allowed that to happen, must be a corrupt system. Because you can't tell me that there are not enough resources around the country when it was shortly they were sharing money to members of the National Assembly to go on Christmas and all those kind of. So it's a misplacement of priority, because even those money that they are collecting over and above what they should get is a product of corruption. For instance, the executive budget proposal for National Assembly was 197 billion. National Assembly ended up giving themselves about 340 something billion naira. You could say, oh, they have the power of appropriation. What they've done is an abuse of powers. It's an abuse. So if you have the power of appropriation, maybe you should vote all the money to yourself and then tell us it is your constitutional prerogative. So these are part of the challenges. People abuse their powers. The little that is remaining, people steal the money. Look at even what we had in the Edu scandal, better Edu scandal, that somebody could pick up that quantum of money and handle it. That shows you that that register they're using to pay is filled with fictitious and ghost names, people who shouldn't be there. Because you can't tell me that that money they were going to handle cash, that they were going to disburse it to proper, poor, wretched Nigerians who were supposed.
You think it's conclusive?
It is. They are already in the process of bringing up money to mismanage. It is. For instance, the 3 billion they use for consultancies, can we see the report of the consultants? What value have those consultants added? By collecting 400 million, you are going to do verification. Verify what? The idea that a serving minister who has a company, okay, he's denying, he has left the board. Eze Onyekprere has a company. I'm a director. I've resigned as a director. My wife is now running the place. We are colleagues, ministers. And my wife comes to you, and we are not quarreling to look for a job. And you wouldn't give her? I mean, it's a quick pro quo. My wife could come to your ministry, collect, and then you could also send any of your relatives, so that if they come to my ministry, they won't find my wife's name. But if they come to yours, it's a quick pro quo. So this is our corruption.
Why is it more dangerous, right, for a society to have a significant part of its police force engaged? I don't know whether significant part is a fair description, but a considerable part of the police force engaging in some of these reprehensible approaches. I mean, at one point in time, we have what we celebrated was a super cop, only to find out that he's been involved in a less than acceptable practices that ended up indicting him. And we've seen the famous unceremonious removal of the Inspector General of Police from service because of corruption and things like that. Give me a sense of what you think has been the cost of this gross underfunding of the Nigerian police, which also is a variable that we have to factor in the conversation, plus what we have done so far by way of reform, because every other Inspector General of Police, every other administration that comes in says, listen, we want to put in place reforms so the police can really become fit for purpose, can really live up to the expectation of policing Nigeria adequately. What is your take on all that we have done so far to address some of these gaps and to reposition the Nigerian police for better service delivery?
We have been dealing with the symptoms of challenges instead of going to the root causes and addressing those root causes. And once you address them, the symptoms will no longer manifest. For instance, the Southwest APC wing have always mounted, say they are progressives. They've always mounted state police, restructuring of the federation. There is no better time to do this than now they have one of their own as the president. And also a pliant legislature who will always do their bidding. We've come to the point where everybody agrees we need state police. What is stopping state police? I don't know. We've also come to a point where everybody agrees that we're under-policed. How many thousand policemen do we have as against 230 or 220 million people? The 300,000 or 400,000 policemen you have, maybe half of them are doing duties with big ogas, big men. You see, they are celebrities, ordinary musicians and actors, having 2 or 3 or 4 mopo with them, running after them, members of the National Assembly. So more than 50% of this so-called 300,000 or 400,000 policemen are doing those duties, not the regular policing. Now, so
private security service.
Yes, so we need more policemen, one, we need state police, and then we need more numbers. Some of us have come to the point where we advocated what we consider a pragmatic way of even raising money for the police. Now, those people following all these musicians, following National Assembly members, there should be only few Nigerians, maybe not up to 100 or so. Maybe by the time you include the judges, they could be up to 1,000 or
the VIPs.
The real VIPs who need police. Beyond them, I've always advocated every other person who needs a police should be made to pay an official treasury fee. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. For instance, when I used to travel to my village, I'm being honest with you, if I reach, I arrange for police. And most times, they ask you to give them money, all right? And that money never enters the treasury. But money, so if you, for instance, say that the rate at which you give out a policeman a day is 10,000, 15,000, and all the money goes to the treasury. So if there are 20,000 Nigerians who need policemen in a day, you times that by 15,000. So what I'm saying is that by the time you do that, you could be realizing 5, 6, 7 billion naira a month, from which you will now hire more policemen to serve. You use the money you are making from those who think they want special police protection, which they are not entitled to now, for each of them paying 10, 15,000 a day. In a month, you are discussing 3 million.
But would that even
so
solve the
with
problem?
that, you now hire double the numbers that are looking out for me and you and every other person. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's a source of funding so that, one, we need state police, two, we need to actually begin to make some resources out of this. And three, beyond the state police, the whole thing is that the system has been subverted. Okay, if they make you the IG or make you the commissioner of police, all the resources is centered at your table, you mismanage it, you don't look at the budget. Because of the hierarchy system in the police, you can't engage your senior to begin to ask him about questions of accountability. Of course, he will deal with you and ask you to wait for your proverbial turn. So that's part of the problem. So we must put in place systems of accountability that go beyond the IG and the commissioner of police being in charge. Yes, you'll be in charge, but somebody else is looking across your shoulder to see whenever one kobo gets missing, you can't account for, you call you to order.
I mean, we do have the Police Service Commission. They're supposed to address some of these gaps, but we're less than satisfied with what is happening. But also, to your point exactly, I mean, one would say that is surely one way to go about it, but there's the counter argument would be, doesn't that make our police guns for hire then?
No, you don't get what I'm saying. If we have come to the stage where guns must be for hire, but the guns for hire are paid by the taxpayer for hire for private purposes. So, assuming you pay 10,000 for a policeman a day, so if you have 10 of them you have 100,000 out. If you have 100 of them, it's 1 million. So one's guns must be for hire. Somebody should pay. And the amount of money you pay will now be used to equip the other part of the police, to hire more men and equip the other part of the police that will be on a day-to-day basis. So you can even get money from there to double the numbers of the police. If you have 300,000, you can target where you're making 5 billion a month. By the way, how much are we paying the police? 5 billion naira a month. Do you know how many thousands of policemen it will pay? And then the numbers will double.
Some are saying, listen, the whole idea of having a police is so people don't feel the need to want to have private protection. That the idea that, you know, we're going to do that suggests that there is no security in the land to begin with, and that's why people are having to pay for their own private protection.
This is like a gap analysis in terms of, say, do this until we settle for the... Even in the US, in all these countries we talk about, people are still having private security, particularly those who feel that big up, whether in government or the celebrities. So
but looking at
you will always have that. But I'm saying, should the taxpayer be funding the lavish lifestyle of a few men and women, including those of them who are perpetually, their own work is to carry Madame's handbag?
Now, I was going to get into that. You know, we've seen how these police officers have been misused in the past, and it has really triggered, or probably get to the point where even the Inspector General of Police said that these police officers will be withdrawn and brought back to, you know,
that's what they tell us. Exactly. The following day, you see, how many times have we been told that they've been withdrawn? The following day, you see your friends who you know, they are still carrying 5, 6 of them.
Of course. So now, is this a sign that we're not ready to fight the corruption in the system and also solve the problem or curb police extortion in Nigeria?
It is partly a sign, because everything starts from the top. If the IG says, withdraw all those who are going after VIPs who are not authorized, and the commissioners of police, the AIGs, enforce it to the letter, that will show you they're serious. Sometimes they make these statements to please the public. Maybe at a time everybody's criticizing the police, or there have been kidnappings and everybody's saying VIPs are carrying, you know, in the heat of that, you hear that the IG has made an order. He wants to sound nice in the eyes of the public. You get to a stage where every radio station you tune to, they have people monitoring these things. Keeps talking about portraying the police in bad terms. They are men and women, all these, their PROs will get back and say, oh God, do you know that today 10 radio stations we are discussing us and nobody came to our defense? So when such things happen, it's like I had, is it today or yesterday, that the Air Force said they have taken out 30 terrorists somewhere in Kaduna. I said, it's possible they've taken out 30 terrorists. It's also possible that nothing happened, because we're in the heat of crisis where everybody's complaining, why are we paying these guys? What are they doing? It's just, this one is happening in Abuja. So part of the thing to show that they're working is to give us a report that they've taken out 30 terrorists. Were you there? Did they call anybody from the media to go and see? No. All these days of the internet now, photoshopping. I'm not saying they didn't do, but I'm just giving you an example of why from time to time you hear Inspector General has said this. The following day, you look out on the street, that same thing Inspector General has said is happening.
So are they not deceiving Nigerians? Are they not extorting us? Are they not deceiving us? What should we do as Nigerians if things like this happen? Because you're a lawyer, you can give us advice on how this could be tackled.
People should fight for their rights.
It doesn't
really end. I'm not suggesting that if you see a man with a gun who is giving you an order for which you could lose your life, dead men and women don't talk. You can simply play along to be alive to fight for your right. But after scenarios like this have happened, you must report to the authorities and follow up. I think it was 2 or 3 days ago I was reading about the guy who this policeman approached without a van without a number.
In Lagos.
Lagos took money and everything.
Tinted glasses.
Yeah, he ended up reporting. They said they've arrested them. One was also One was also taken somewhere and was forced to transfer money
here in
through POS. The guys are on it. I think I saw them saying they've identified them, they're on the run. So that's what you have to fight. You have to fight.
But do you think
but don't go and be a dead hero to say somebody is in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
When they shoot the person he's dead, they're the ones who are going to say he's an armed robber. They will take one of their guns and
what
do
we do about institutionalizing the fight against corruption from within? Because we do know, like, these security institutions have by design a system that allows them to check themselves from within, because most of these cases only come to light because of social media, when the victims complain about it, when they have a recording about it, and then the police gets wind of it and they say, okay, we're acting on it, and then we see them come out with the ceremonious dismissal of some of these officers after the conclusion of an investigation. But what can the police do internally to perhaps boost this fight against corruption from within, so that they on their own, without the public's help, without any sort of motivation from social media, are seen to be the ones fighting against it? Because for the better part, Nigerians seem to believe that this is an acceptable situation from within the force, except if it goes public, and then because they're trying to save face, they then appear to fight it.
It's not just one single item, okay, that you have to address. First of all, you start from the training. The training they're giving should be fully at home with human rights and fundamental freedoms and the most relevant and decent rules of policing based on best practices. Number two, you must treat them as human beings, properly so-called, in terms of their remuneration. And I expect something like insurance too. Proper insurance, that a policeman who dies on duty, at least the spouse or whoever, the dependents, will not cry. They will cry, but somehow they will have something reasonable to fall back on. For instance, in my small office, we do a scheme where anybody, if God decides that somebody should go, your relatives or whoever is your next of kin will receive 3 times your salary, your 3 years salary up front. And it doesn't cost a fortune. It's about 6 per mil. 6,000 naira premium per million you pay. So that's number 2. Number 3, there are operational issues. Like in some parts of the world, policemen are, even in the US now, wearing body cameras. You know, it's always been my word against yours. Oh, he did this, nobody was here. So from minute 1, as you're approaching somebody who you later shot or who you fought with or who this thing, the cameras are recording your conversations, they're recording your gestures, the video and audio, so that it gets to a point where you, the policeman, you know that as you are on that beat, you have something that is reporting to a control room, or that could be taken off you later, and all those, I will kill you and nothing will happen. You'll be seen clearly saying it, and once it gets to that stage, you are gone. So that's an operational issue. And then when reports come, it shouldn't be ad hoc. There should be an institutionalized mechanism in terms of where can you go and lodge a report. And once you lodge, we see action immediately. So it's not just one thing. I've mentioned training, I've mentioned they be treated well, paid well, of course, the insurance, giving them right equipment as well. Because I heard today the police were complaining of tracking, but I know in the budget so much money has been made available for these equipments that I wonder over the last 10 years, what exactly did they use the money for? So give them those equipment, let them be operational. You get to a police station and you say, okay, please, I have a report here. First of all, there may be no car. Or if there is a car there, they say there's no money for fuel.
You know, a lot of Nigerians has been speaking about this.
Good.
Another aspect of...
No money for fuel. You want to write a statement, you have to pay for a sheet of paper and biro.
Another aspect of this extortion that affects you and I is the fact that I think we got reports from Kebbi State recently about police officers taking money for, you know, some of these grains that have been transported from one local government to the other. And for a bag, they collect about 1,000. So if you have about 600,000 bags in a truck, you're paying like 600,000 naira, and that goes to affect the prices of food in the market. Of course, some of these grains are staples. Now, how do we tackle that sort of extortion? Because some people, like my co-anchor rightly said, it's inherent. Some people think it's normal for you to receive such kind of money.
Do you pay this money on the road? Is this money paid on the road, or before you leave?
On the road, before you leave with your truck from one destination to the other.
Well, like you said, by the time you add this thing up, it increases the price of the food items, which makes the life of the common man or woman more unbearable. But I think for this to happen to this extent means that the hierarchy in that state is also complicit. But they will deny, because they wouldn't say they have not heard of it. If you are a commissioner or the AIG or in charge of a division and you are not part of it, it's likely the boys under you will not continue, because once you get the first report and you deal with 1, 2, or 3 persons, everybody will run, because they will say, if Oga hears of it, you're in trouble, or you may lose your job, or you may even go to jail. So, but what happens is that where there is a system of returns, the gentlemen and women on the road make returns to the bigger people in the office, the bigger people in the office make returns to a higher authority. So it's a systemic thing. I'm insisting that once the people at the top, from IG to the AIGs, down to police commissioners, down to the divisional commanders, say, we don't want this to continue. The boys on the road will not do it. But if the boys on the road make returns to those big guys sitting in the office, there's nothing you can do for now except this continued pressure, social media, the lawyers, the advocates, the journalists following up individual cases until everybody gets afraid of doing the wrong thing.
Right. And of course, let it be known that this is not necessarily about bashing the police or making them look bad. This is about working on a problem that continues to undermine the growth and development of one of the greatest countries, or potentially greatest countries in the world. Barrister Eze Onyekprere, thank you very much for joining us this morning and for sharing your 2 cents with us on this particular conversation. We appreciate your insight as always. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.